Chat, you know what? They might have banned me off of Twitter, but I'm still unemployed and I gotta do this stuff. So, chat, I just love talking about the downfall of slop games. How to butcher your entire game studio in under 45 days. I guess, you know what? What's his name? John Video Game couldn't sell. And then that other game, that Voto Likes You, that game only has like 100 players. So, not a great game for the AAA space. But that's okay because Arcanite's Enfield just came out with Tung Tung. I'm doing A-okay.
$1 million.
I love our tribal chief.
That's how much it costs to have a game trailer be featured
December
to the
10th.
millions of people watching the yearly Game Awards ceremony. However, during the final game reveal of 2025's award show, usually the moment everyone is waiting for, we'd see the showrunner preparing us to witness a new revolutionary multiplayer game made by an independent, self-published studio. And you know what? He wasn't exaggerating. In fact, the game was so revolutionary that it managed to get bombarded by negative reviews from the moment it launched. Proceeded to lose over 90%.
Chat. People... actually, I guess you could. They did pay. I was going to say, you couldn't pay for this much exposure, which you can. It cost $1 million. He said it earlier. But chat, you paid $1 million. This is almost like ViewBuddy. You paid $1 million, 100,000 players on Steam alone, by the way. I think it also came out for PlayStation. And you fumbled. Chat, how does that work? I don't understand. Are you telling me that you couldn't keep 1,000 players? Actually, they kept 1,000 players for like a week. Now there's only 400, and now there's none. But you know what? Still, I can't figure. Look at that, dude. It didn't go up a single time. Like you see that? It went straight down and never came back up.
Of his player base within less than a week after launch, fired 80% of its staff in barely 2 weeks after launch, and shut down the entire studio as well as the game.
There it is, EOS. Unlucky.
Itself in less than 45
The Miz is trending. Sorry.
days after launch. The story of Highgard is one of
There
utter
he is, John Video
mismanagement,
Game.
blatant lies about its independent status,
Yeah.
and uncontrollable hubris that spanned over half a decade of development. I mean, it was such a disaster that it most likely burned
took
through
half a
tens
decade to make
of
that?
millions of dollars of funding, with some even theorizing that the total amount could have been over 200 million. So how did
Jeez.
these developers that worked on nothing but industry-defining blockbusters over the years fail so miserably? And why did one of the most influential figures in
Geoff
gaming decide
Keighley.
to stake his entire reputation all for the sake of peddling Highgard harder than any other
don't
game in
know.
his career? Well, as you might expect,
Dude, people need to go check on Jeff. I know he's struggling right now. Jeff is he's not having a great time. Can someone go check on Jeff? Can someone bring him a bag of Doritos? I think that'll get him back. Give him a bag of Doritos. He'll figure it out.
the
He'll
story
get over
is
it.
very messy and has a lot of details. So, without further ado, let's
These characters look so generic.
All right, so to really understand the disaster of Highgard, we actually have to go all the way back to
Why do we always have to go back to the beginning of time? I don't understand. The world was created.
1995 when the Electronic Entertainment Expo, otherwise known as E3, would launch. Back then, video games were nowhere near close to how big they
Okay.
are today. And this
Right.
expo was mostly used to showcase to publishers and, well, business people certain aspects of the video game
They just don't make them like this anymore, chat. They really don't.
industry. Throughout the years that followed, though, gaming would start to become more and more profitable and mainstream. E3 would benefit from this directly, and it would become the biggest video game related event every single year in parallel to its European counterpart, which was Gamescom. It would consistently be held in the summer
Greatness
of every
always.
year, more
Uncharted
specifically in
4.
the month of June.
Ooh,
One
Street
of the
Fighter
biggest
5. Man, that's old because it's on Street. That was when Street Fighter 5 came out, I guess, or it was being showcased. I don't know if it had come out at that time, but yeah, chat. We're on 6, and we're actually like 3 years into 6, something like
Highlights
that.
of E3 was during the peak of the console wars when you had PlayStation and Xbox rent out spaces a few feet away from each other as they were presenting the
Wow.
next generation consoles that would
Xbox,
define
PlayStation.
gaming for the next few years. This is what E3 truly was all about. However, as you might know by now, all good things come to an end.
Ooh, dude, look at all this cool stuff. Square Enix, WB Games, Capcom. that Ryu? Yeah, or you see this, what's it called? Street Fighter 6. Shadow of Mordor? You see that? That's right here. You can see it right here. Shadow of Mordor. Oh, God. I don't recognize the rest of the stuff, but this stuff looks sick. Dude, this looks like such a cool place to be. All these games.
And E3, unfortunately, was no exception. For many people, the end of E3 was due to the COVID-19 pandemic, but in other ways, one could say that it began prior. From the day this expo was created, the only people who had access to E3 were industry insiders or press. Regular people had no access, but E3 2019 changed that. This allowed 15,000 regular people, non-industry insiders, to buy tickets that were priced at over $100 so that they could, for the first time, join in on the fun.
Damn.
This showed that E3 was looking for more ways to make money. It simply wasn't sustainable to run this based purely on industry insiders. In 2020, the public passes were going to go from 15,000 to 25,000, showing a real need of more ways to make money. However, due to the pandemic, everything came to a halt.
Okay, so they were already failing before, and then the pandemic just kind of crushed them. That sucks, bro. I don't know what other kind of... I'm trying to think what other kind of gaming convention that was shut down. Is PAX still a thing? I don't think PAX is a thing anymore, right? It sucks to see like a whole bunch of like gaming stuff shut down like this, right?
I love gaming that brought their content online or remote. E3 decided to pretty much kill everything. 2020 was the only year since 1995 that had nothing to do with the Electronic Entertainment Expo. Now look, it's no secret. There are certain developers like Nintendo who've been holding their own presentations every single year since 2014.
Hollow Knight, sorry.
E3 shutting down in 2020 only made it more clear. Nintendo Direct is not only here to stay, it should be the primary source of Nintendo news. Xbox, who would usually reserve their biggest announcements for E3, would take a page out of Nintendo's playbook, inaugurating...
I mean, it makes sense, right? Because why pay someone else to showcase your stuff when you could just showcase it yourself, especially with like YouTube and stuff like that? I get it. I do. It sucks, though. I really wish like those conventions were still around. They sound like a blast. Just for me, like being selfish, like not even caring about the publishers. I'm just like, man, that'd be kind of sick.
Xbox Games Showcase, which has been, since that year, their main way to showcase their biggest announcements. PlayStation...
Do they even make games anymore from Xbox?
PlayStation would do the exact same thing.
PlayStation does, I know that much.
Of play. In 2021, E3 was still not held physically, but this time they held it remotely with anyone able to join. They were hoping to return to an in-person event by 2022, but those plans were also completely scrapped, and there wasn't even a digital event. It was just like 2020. They were finally meant to bring back E3 physically in 2023, but due to the lack of interest by publishers who had already spent so much making their own shows, they just decided to flat out cancel it. This wasn't just the console makers making their own shows. You had developers making their own shows too, like EA Play, the Ubisoft conference, the Square Enix conference. E3 was essentially made redundant, and the pandemic only accelerated that. I truly think that this was where the world was headed anyway. Problem is, though, now you had multiple different conferences to look forward to for different publishers and games, and that in turn left a huge vacuum for any mid-sized or indie-sized studio. Where were they meant to talk about their games? Well, that's where Geoff Keighley comes in. Look, Geoff, when it comes to the video game industry, has been a veteran for a very long time. If you followed any gaming news or events, you must have definitely seen his face at least once, whether it be E3, Gamescom, or any high-profile gaming-related event.
I never actually heard of him until the Game Awards. I don't know.
His story goes back decades, even though the guy for some reason never ages. He was truly able to put his name on the map when he was the only journalist who was present with Valve as they were launching Half-Life 2. Taking you behind the scenes in a studio, Valve, which is known to be quite secretive to the public. He was also involved in his fair share of controversies like the whole Dorito Gate saga, when he presented the Halo partnership with Mountain Dew and Doritos, which led to this famous picture. Fundamentally though, to Geoff, his goal has always been to give gaming what it deserves, and that's to put it on par with other creative avenues, like movies. Both his parents were executives at IMAX. This meant that he constantly attended things like the Oscars. From an early age, he wondered why video games didn't have an equivalent to the Oscars, even though they were a medium that deserved it. In 2014, he would do something ridiculous, insane, which is creating a new award show for video games with money out of his own pocket. He refused to fundraise it because he said it would be too awkward. He wanted to put his money where his mouth was. The reason why he was insane was because throughout the years, there were many other other attempts to do this. These gaming awards, none of them would really stick. But over the years, he did exactly that. It
Game Awards
actually
saw
stuck and
record-breaking
has now
viewership
become an
and additional-
integral part of video games.
Yeah.
However, as E3 shut down, he also saw another opportunity, filling the void that it left. This is when he would launch the Summer Game Fest. It took place in the same month that E3 took place in. It wasn't rocket science. It aimed to fill the exact void left over by E3's cancellation. This meant that Geoff and his production team would not only head the prestigious Game Awards in December, but would also have another event called the Summer Game Fest in the summer. Both of these events would have game reveals, and both of them would be watched by hundreds of thousands of people expecting to see games that will revolutionize the space. When it came to the Game Awards in particular, over the years, it had gotten so successful with such a high, consistent viewership that by 2025, it was reported that if you want to showcase a 3-minute trailer during the awards, it would cost you over $1 million.
Chat, how much does it cost for a Super Bowl ad? I mean, I guess you... not even the Super Bowl. I guess these would be called. These are the. How much is a Super Bowl ad? A Super Bowl ad is estimated to range from 16 million to 29 million. Jesus Christ. In 2026, a 30-second commercial during the Super Bowl costs approximately $8 million for 30 seconds. Wow. So yeah, this is basically like the Super Bowl. These are like Super Bowl ads. And they get treated just as seriously, too, by the way. Like, people love watching the Super Bowl for the ads, right? And, I think the award shows are basically... This award show is basically the same thing, right? I know a lot of people want to see their games and blah, blah, blah. I mean, I do. I do, too. I loved watching Uma Musume beat Wuthering Waves. Watching Wuthering Waves, again, never win a mobile game of the year is, like... That's just, like, crack to me. But, yeah. So yeah, people typically just watch for the trailer a lot of the time.
Almost doubling the prices from 2024.
Especially last year when we know that Claire Obscure was just going to win everything.
And of course, it goes without saying, the most valuable slot in the entire award show is the final game that's shown. In show business, you always save the best for last. You want people to keep watching. And so, this is why it was so shocking to the world that for the Game Awards 2025, with such high prices, the game deemed most valuable in the entire show, the one shown at the end, would be something they had never heard of before. Highgard. And this is how it would be presented. Take a look for yourself.
Sometimes our last reveal at the Game Awards
so
is a teaser for
excited. Look at him.
Years and years away. But not tonight. Our final world premiere comes from 61 members of the team that built Apex Legends and Titanfall.
When he talks like that, I could see why people assumed it might have been like Titanfall 3 or something, right? And obviously, it's just not. Whoops.
4 years ago, the principals founded a new independent studio with the hopes of pushing the shooter genre forward with a new original game. They've done it in complete secrecy, which is even more amazing because the game is very deep into development. The power of independent, self-published studios to push this medium forward is a growing and I think positive theme in our industry. So tonight, you're not only going to get the announcement of the game, but also your first look at the gameplay. I've played it, and after you see this trailer, I think you're going to want to as well.
But like, I really need to see. You know how a lot of people are saying, I played this game and blah, 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 blah. I don't believe you, right? Or even if you did play it, I don't believe you had. What they need to do is film these sessions, right? If you're telling me that I played Highgard, blah, 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 and we had a great time, film them. Why don't you film these I think Valorant did that at one point, right? When they had, or 2XKO, I think. No, I think it was 2XKO. They like, in the middle of development, they like showed like actual gameplay and like their developers playing it. I want to see this footage. There's no way you had a great time playing it.
Welcome to Highgard.
Highgard.
Yeah, 1,200 likes on the video. 17
It sounds like a promising game, Chad. Do you think it's still going? I think it went pretty well.
1,000 dislikes. Now, I'm not going to show you the gameplay just yet. You need even more context to understand just how ridiculous everything he said.
Tell us the
truly
beginning
was.
of computers.
Prior to this Game Awards show, Geoff would tweet coordinates, on Twitter, just randomly, that would lead you to this weird statue in the middle of the Mojave Desert. It was an enigma. For weeks, people had no idea what it was. This was the main mystery of the Game Awards, and that game ended up being none other than Divinity, made by Larian Studios, the same people who made Baldur's Gate 3. To many, this was the biggest game of the Game Awards. This was meant to be the final game to be shown, right? The biggest event of that day.
It was.
Instead, what people...
It was pretty sick. In both ways. Actually, in both meaning of the word. It was pretty sick as a game, and it was also a little bit disturbing. I'm not gonna lie, I cringed a little bit. Is that the right word? Cringe is probably not the right word. I felt a bit squeamish. Is that the right word? I don't know, but it was a little much. But it looked sick. It looked really cool. I can't lie, it looked really, really cool.
Got was a game they never heard of before. That looked
it's him,
fairly
Chad.
generic.
It's John Video Game.
Didn't really seem to make it clear what it was about.
Dude, he looks just like it. That you can't.
Looked fairly generic. That didn't really seem to.
Chad, you cannot have an NPC as your main character. He doesn't look like a main character. He just looks like John Video Game.
Make it clear what it was about. Geoff had hyped this up like a revolutionary title, but it looked like any other game you could find on Steam right now.
I think, is his head too big for his body? It kind of looks like
a revolution.
His face just doesn't look like it fits his body. Is that weird? I don't know.
Title, but it looked like any other game you could find on Steam right now.
Yeah.
Pretty crazy. That's right. Highgard launches in just 7 weeks on PC, PlayStation, and Xbox. It is
all right, it was on
insanely
Xbox
fun
too.
to see. Fun to
I
play
forget
as
about
you saw
Xbox.
in that trailer. And now it's time for our final award. Last year, Astrobot.
So there it was, the biggest game of this prestigious award show, coming out in 7 weeks and seemingly out of nowhere. So as you would expect, people put on their investigative fedoras to determine where this independent self-publishing developer, as Geoff described it, came from. And that investigation would only lead to more confusion and suspicion. You see, the studio behind Highgard, Wildlight Entertainment, made their first announcement to the public that they exist back in the beginning of 2023. Here we can see the design and creative director.
You show me that guy's Twitter handle. Don't you censor it. Sorry, go ahead.
Director of Wildlight making a tweet saying, "What have I been up to over the last year anyway? Working hard on a game with amazing people who I trust very much. Today we announced Wildlight Entertainment, our new studio. I've never been happier, prouder, and hyped for the game we're working on." As we can see in his Twitter bio, he had worked on Apex Legends, Titanfall 1 and 2, Modern Warfare 2, and Call of Duty World at War.
What a resume.
So these are very well-regarded games.
That's an insane resume.
This is when the studio would also create its Twitter account saying, "Hello world. We're very excited today to announce our new game studio, Wildlight Entertainment. We've got big dreams of creating an epic shooter IP." And here we can see a Zoom call of 22 different staff members that were working at that studio as early as 2023. It wouldn't even take a day for game publications to start reporting on this. Former Apex Legends, Titanfall developers create new studio, Wildlight Entertainment. The studio head would be Chad, someone who is at
this has to be like the amalgamation of everything the AAA slop space has ever wanted, because these people got pushed so insanely hard, it's insane. Right? I said insane twice. Sorry about that. But yeah, they wanted this game to succeed, and I don't know why. I always wonder why they absolutely need these slop games to succeed. Right? You're seeing right here that what's it called? Wildlife being pushed so hard. Like they're the Globetrotters or something. Like they're just a random group of people. Why are we so excited?
Respawn Entertainment for around 11 years.
Right.
He was also the ex-game director for Apex Legends, a game that had, well, made a lot of money. So no wonder
they have a lot of microtransactions. They do. But they have the good kind. They have the skin kind, not the ones that like you win or something. Like game-changing microtransactions, like they give you skins. I'm okay with that. I think skins are the perfect microtransactions because they don't really hurt anything, right? You just look cool and you gotta flex on people. Chat, you can't let these people think you're poor. You gotta flex on them. Get a skin.
Many publications were talking about it. You have a bunch of ex-Infinity Ward and ex-Respawn Entertainment developers that made their studios a lot of money, now forming their own. And so far, other than this
Apex
very
is still
limited
popular.
array of information we have from 2023, the only other thing we knew was from Geoff Keighley himself, calling it a self-published independent studio. Even though their own company LinkedIn page, as early as 2023, would say Wildlight Entertainment is a new, fully funded entertainment studio.
Wait, what?
Never really specifying where they got their money from. In fact, what I find interesting is that the website linked on their LinkedIn is wildlightentertainment.com. And when you go there, it says, we're under construction. Please check back for an update soon. It's not even wildlight.gg, which actually works.
Available
but this
now.
little piece of mismanagement aside, Wildlight
It was probably
about to
just too
face
long.
a world of hurt that they could have never predicted after their reveal at the Game Awards. You see, back in 2024, Sony launched Concord, a multiplayer shooter that was meant to be live service that...
Chat, this thing is like, I don't even know. This is like a... This game just haunts these people. And it should, chat. I don't want it to be like, oh my god, these people are being haunted by Concord. That's not fair. No, it's fair. It is fair game. You want to put out a game like this, you absolutely should be... This should haunt you for the rest of your days. That's how bad this game is. No one should get a moment of peace from making this game. This game should haunt you like a plague.
Cost over $400 million, and that was such a disastrous flop. It shut down in under 2 weeks. I mean, it resulted in a studio that Sony had bought to shut down immediately afterwards. This made many people ask the question, who asked for this game to begin with?
Nobody.
Ever since then, whenever someone comes out with a newly announced live service multiplayer game, they're placed under 1,000 times more scrutiny due to this. And while I'm sure the Highgard developers, after working in secrecy for so long, were so excited about the Game Awards reveal, what they could have probably never expected is that people were making direct comparisons of their game
Highgard could be dead on
to
arrival as
Concord.
gamers fear
The
a flop
worst
is
thing
inbound.
can ever hope to happen in this day and age. Based on this uninspired generic gameplay they showed during the Game Awards, even with Geoff's insane hype towards it, it seemed like it was going to be nothing more than a Concord.
Immediately branded as Concord 2. Is it Concord 2 or is it Concord 3? 2. I think Marathon is Concord 3. But to be fair, Marathon, I believe, will survive. I think Marathon will survive. A lot of people are still playing it. I believe it should survive. I don't think it'll EOS that quickly.
Or 2.0, any developer's worst nightmare. But you know what didn't help at all? Highgard's social media page would tweet almost immediately after the trailer would come out during the Game Awards, saying, "What a night! We'd like to extend a big thank you to Geoff Keighley and the Game Awards. We have so much in store for you when the game launches on January 26th.
That ratio's a little rough, I'm not gonna
welcome
lie.
everyone into the world of Highgard. We'll see you next year, Wardens." Okay, this is a post you would expect them to make after the big
that's
reveal.
fine.
Sure.
Very,
you know
very
what else
nice.
you would
Not
expect,
too
though?
bad.
Them continuing to tweet up until release day. Except they didn't. They literally disappeared. To the point where many gaming publications, including Forbes, would start making...
Guys, please, can we get some betas? Some beta access, some closed betas, some open betas, some half-a betas. Fate Trigger has a beta going on. Is it still going on right now? I don't remember. I think it might have ended, but every game that, like all these games have betas. Why don't these games have betas? I don't understand. Like, games like Resident Evil, the single-player games, I get it. I 100% get it, right? And, dude, Resident Evil was... Woo! Leon, here comes the money, Kennedy. Am I right? Anyways, I think these games just need to start investing in, like, betas or something. Because you can't... I don't know, man. I just don't trust these people to release a game like that. Just kind of shadow drop a game and it'd be good.
Articles about how they went MIA right after the Game Awards. No new videos on their YouTube page, no new tweets on their Twitter account, nothing. Radio silence, and the game was meant to come...
Introduce the game. Do you guys not introduce the... Here, let me show you something real fast. Okay, I know I like using this game a lot, but there's a reason for that. It's because this game is really good. Let's see. Videos from 3 years ago, a year ago. Let's see. And this should be up until the part where Arknights should be on release. We have PlayStation Game Demo Test 2, Beta Test 1, Arknights, Operator Stories. We have Chen Chunyu, Introduction to the characters. We have Administrator, Perlica, Chetrinia, Wolfguard, Ardelia. This game still, mind you, this game still is not released yet from these videos. New Horizon trailer, the mission, still not out yet. I think this is when it should be out. Right here. Welcome Home Administrator, pre-download available. It's still not out yet. I think around here when Leviathan was out, I think it's this. Right here, like a month ago. The game finally releases. Look how much content is being released and constantly being tweeted out in the meantime. Like, and it's still going, by the way. Like, there's still a bunch of content coming out. That game is only a month old.
Come out 3 weeks from then.
Post something is all I'm trying to say.
This article was written on January
Anything.
6th. The game was going to come out in 20 days. 6 days later, Paul Tassi from Forbes would write another article on January
crap.
12th
This
titled
guy.
The Highgard Mystery. 2 weeks to launch in complete silence. Now look, to be fair, this could have been a genius marketing move. Everyone was talking
Is
about
it?
this
Are
game,
you sure?
saying how they probably closed.
But are we talking about it, right? I don't want to hear journals talking about it. I want to know, are the people talking about it, chat? The journals always talk about anything and everything that you might honestly is almost anti-gaming. So I don't care what they have to say. I want to know if people are talking about it.
Down or declared bankruptcy right before launch. However, in my opinion, you'd be naive to think that there's no such thing as bad publicity all the time. No, there are exceptions. This isn't the Wolf of Wall Street. When your game is being called by so many people Concord 2, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy unless you're there to
I was gonna say, just look at. Never mind.
stop it.
Never mind.
Highgard wasn't there to stop it. In fact, a new theory is popping up now, the fact that they weren't even going to release anymore. And just as you thought that things couldn't get worse so shortly before the game was meant to launch, things got even weirder. The senior writer of Gaming and Tech Adventure Beat, Imran Khan, would come out with the news. Highgard did not pay a single penny to be featured in the most valuable spot in the Game Awards spotlight. That's right. The same Game Awards that charges $1 million for 3 minutes gave its most valuable spot during the entire show for free. On January 17th, 2026, 9 days before the game was meant to come out, Forbes would also confirm this, citing 2 separate sources that reached out, confirming, yes, they didn't pay a single penny. Geoff just really liked
Forbes. I don't know why that bothers me. Why does Forbes care? Why do we care what Forbes care? I don't know.
the game and offered it to them. So there we were, 9 days away from release, and this bombshell dropped. Is this Concord 2.0? Did they go bankrupt before the game even releases? And why the hell did Geoff give his most popular spot in the show to this very generic looking game? The gaming community was truly baffled at something that had never really occurred before. And just as the discourse was running rampant on every piece of social media you can imagine, something completely unexpected ended up happening. And that's Highgard finally breaking their silence barely 3 days before release. On January 22nd, 2026, Geoff Keighley would tweet, "Just 4 days until the launch of Highgard on Monday on Steam and consoles." Bear in mind, up until this point, Highgard had said...
And these are like getting really big... Actually, I don't know. I want to say that these are big tweets as they're coming out, right? Because obviously, you know, these tweets will get a lot bigger and a lot more attention as people come back to it. Seeing all the news about Highgard and how it kind of flopped and died and all that and blah, 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 right? That's kind of what I'm wondering. But even still, 1.7 mil on this post alone is pretty huge, right? So these posts are, whether we like it or not, are popping off.
Thing since the Game Awards reveal. Geoff was single-handedly carrying this game's entire marketing, and many of the comments are pretty much saying this.
Have you heard
Paul
anything?
Tassi, the same guy who wrote those Forbes articles, would literally say, "Have you heard anything? Like, is the developer still here? Did they not go bankrupt?" And it would only be on January 23rd, 2026, that Highgard would finally make some sort of social media announcement. 3 days before their release, saying, "Tune in on Monday, January 26th at 10 a.m. PT for the Highgard launch showcase." Here, we'll share an in-depth look at Highgard direct from the studio, featuring a full gameplay deep dive, year one plans, and much more. As you can imagine, many of the comments were roasting them, grilling them, with some acknowledging that this might have just been a very good marketing strategy. The Highgard account would...
I don't know, Chad. I guess it's just because I'm used to things coming out or being like talked about, right? Now, obviously, I use the example of Arknight's Enfield, but there's also other examples of things coming out, making a huge splash, and then nothing, right? Like Anata. Anata was one of the biggest games to be shown. I think was at the Game Awards. I don't know, but you know, or another game like Varsapura. Varsapura from MiHoYo will not come out for like 3 years, and then they showed a beta showcase. Same with Silver Palace. I think that comes out this year or next year. I don't know. But they're showing these showcases, and then they don't show anything, right? I'm sure everyone wants to see Anata, but they're not really showing anything. So, I don't know. Is it genius? Is it not? It's kind of hard to say. But also, those games came out with a huge splash, right? Everyone wants to play Anata. Everyone wants to play Silver Palace, and Varsapura was a little bit, you know, I think it might have been a little bit of a mixed bag, but I'm a huge MiHoYo fan, so I want to play more Varsapura.
Countdown posting every day up until release, saying 1 day remains. And you know what? Looking at some of these 420 replies, there was some excitement brewing. You know, people were very curious to see why was Geoff talking about this game so much. And God, talking about it was an understatement. The guy couldn't stop talking as if they held his family hostage. On January 23rd, he would just tweet this image randomly saying, Highgard, January 26th at 10 a.m. PST, signaling when it would release. Someone in the replies would say, thanks, Geoff, to which Geoff would say, see you online. It's a special one. The next day, he'd post a badge saying,
I need to do the Angels of Delusion quest. Sorry, I apologize.
First went hands-on.
The music reminded me because it's a Zelda Zone Zero track.
Last summer and had so much fun with Highgard. Now it's your turn on Monday. Curious what everyone thinks. On that same
badge
day,
looks
he
pretty
would
cool.
post a GIF saying, in 48 hours, I'll be accepting your apologies. So when Highgard comes out. On January 26th, when the game would come out, he'd post a screen cap of a Polygon article. The title was, Highgard isn't dead on her.
Yeah. Okay. That's who I trust, Polygon. Well, it's actually, to be fair, the first day, it looked great. On paper. On paper, everyone was playing it, right? 100,000 players, day one on Steam alone. That's pretty good. They didn't keep it, though.
Arrival. In fact, after 4 hours, I'm convinced it's one of the best new shooters in years.
Did that take you 4 hours to get through one game? Sorry, weird question.
Really mean much though, because Polygon thought Dragon Age the Veilguard was actually good.
Dude, no one cares about Polygon. A good game like Concord just isn't good enough anymore. A look at Sony's decision, some baffling other well-intentioned that ruined a hero shooter. Dude, this is what I'm telling you. These people are so out of touch with what gamers actually like. You know what I'm saying? Like, Polygon, Kotaku, PC Gamer, like all these journals, like no one cares what they have to say, brother. These are like the most out of touch, boomed out, non-gaming gaming journals ever. I don't care what they have to say.
With Concord, 1 minute later, after that Polygon post, he would make another post with 4 different images of the game saying screenshots from Highgard, now live and free. Look, I think you get the point I'm trying to make here. This guy was tweeting and talking about this game more than their official account. And when I say this guy, I mean one of, if not the most influential voice in video gaming. For some reason, he decided to stake his entire reputation on this game being a success, being fun, being good. So much so that he gave it his most valuable spot in his show. At this point, there was 3 possibilities. He had a financial stake in this game, his family was being held hostage by Highgard devs, or he just genuinely wanted to help.
Maybe it's number 3 or number 2. You don't know.
Help. Regardless of those possibilities, though, he just staked his entire reputation on this game, and that meant something. Some of the biggest streamers and content creators would check out this game as soon as it would release.
Oh yeah, Shroud.
Yes, of course, some would be sponsored. That was Highgard's social media strategy, similarly to Apex Legends. Right. We'll get more into that later. But let's not pretend that they wouldn't have played it anyway, because, God, the curiosity would kill you. Why is this guy who's so influential in the video game industry staking everything for it? It must be good, right? Well, actually, it was... Dude, it was
Code Carnage.
Mid. The trailer turned out to actually do it a lot of justice. It was generic as hell. Jeff's efforts would make it so that the game had 100,000 concurrent players on release.
That's pretty nuts. I'm not gonna lie. Jeff has such a big pull in the game industry, right? Like, people really showed up for this game. Whoops.
It's a crazy number. However, even Jeff's endless marketing wouldn't prove good enough if your game just doesn't cut it. And it didn't. The player count would fall off very quickly. Oof. Almost a day after the game would come out, Jeff would tweet, "Thoughts on Highgard so far?" This tweet has over 7.5 million views.
Asman, bro.
1,900 replies. It was safe to say that he didn't really get the response he was looking for. I'm sure he was hoping for, "Jeff, you're
Farina, absolute ass."
You're right. Sorry, you proved me wrong." But instead, he got the absolute opposite. And of course, one of the biggest questions being asked at the time was, why did he shill this game so damn hard knowing that it's nothing special? Someone would at Jeff saying, "Hey Jeff, I was wondering if you financially backed Highgard during development or own some percentage of the company. Obviously, you don't have to answer. Just curious if you have any incentive with Wildlight Entertainment if they hit certain earning thresholds." To which he would reply with, "Lol."
You think he has a discount code, chat? I kind of do. Where's the Jeff discount code? It's probably like, what's it called? Fortnite or Epic, where you have the Epic creator code. Does he have a creator code?
Absolutely not. This meant that the 3 possibilities I listed earlier now were down to 2. Either Highgard developers held his family hostage, or he genuinely was just trying to help. Well, as I mentioned, even his help wouldn't be enough if the game wasn't up to par. On Steam, the game would open up with overwhelmingly negative reviews, with only 17% of them being positive. The main complaints were poor performance, uninspired art direction, and just tedious gameplay.
Right.
Look, if I had to explain to you the purpose of a game, like let's say Call of Duty or Apex Legends, it would take me 10 seconds. Like for example, in Apex Legends, you have multiple operators, each with different abilities. You land on a big map and your goal is to loot gear to survive, hunting down other players and being the last team to live. Done. Yeah, well, just to explain the gameplay loop of Highgard, GameSpot made a YouTube short. This was them trying to explain it as fast and simply as possible.
Oh god,
here we go. You know how
go.
long the short is? 1 minute, 48 seconds. They needed almost 2 minutes to explain to you the gameplay loop of Highgard. That already says a lot to the complexity and tediousness of this game. Look, overall, it doesn't take a genius to understand from their trailer. You had multiple wardens, characters you could play with different abilities.
Kind of okay.
You and your team would also vote on a base. There was multiple.
Why she got Brian Urlacher shoulders though? She looks like she got football pads on. I mean, she's pretty though. This thing's kind of cool. What is this? Everyone looks like they're wearing starter gear though. Right? Like, this looks like a starter gear. This is like level 1 gear. It's not really interesting, right?
Wardens, characters you could play with different abilities.
Like in an MMO, that's like level 1 gear right there.
On a base. There was multiple types of bases that you could start with. The whole point of this game was to fortify your base and attack the other base. You had to find a sword on a map, which would allow you to destroy the shield of the enemy base, and then you'd be the attacker, they'd be the defender. And in order to win, you'd have to destroy multiple things in that base of theirs. Their generators, their power, etc., etc. That's it really in an utter nutshell. Now look, in theory, this might sound fun, but there were some things that just didn't really make much sense.
I was going to say it does, actually. Because there's always capture the flag game modes, right? But destroying a base, I don't know how many games are like that. That sounds pretty cool. I don't know. That sounds kind of cool.
It really added to the tediousness. This map was absolutely massive, and yet it was only 3v3.
Like low taper fade massive?
Didn't make much sense. These aspects of tediousness, as well as uninspired gun gameplay, coupled with the fact that everything looked generic, a McDonald's type of art direction, as you might say. Like as if you bought a bunch of different assets from a marketplace.
I like her. I will say, I kind of like her.
But
again, like I'm saying, dude, this is
Arnold's type of art direction, as you might say. Like as if you bought,
like she would be, I don't know, let's say an assassin character. This is your starting gear. Typically, I feel like when you get characters, you kind of want to see them in their already final form, kind of ish. Like when you pick a class in certain games, I think it shows you your final gear ish. and then they put you in the starter gear so you have something to grind for. This just shows you have nothing else to grind for but this. I guess skins would have solved the problem, but even characters without skins in like Apex look cool. Right? The skins, like, what's it called? Fate Trigger. The characters look really cool in Fate Trigger. It might be because they're anime, big breasts, sure. But still, they look like cool anime characters. These characters right here, and it's not even like they're ugly. Like, this character's really pretty. She just has some generic ass clothes on. Right? This is like Renaissance fair level of art design.
A bunch of different assets from a marketplace gave the impression to many people that this was some sort of a Frankenstein game. Like, they just took a bunch of different things they developed over a couple of years and just shipped it together just to get something out for people to play. And even though the game was free, the game was bleeding players like it had been struck in an artery. As of now, even game journalists found this game to be lacking, uninspiring, giving it a 63 out of 100 Metacritic score. But the real pain came from the players, 2.6 out of 10. From almost 300 user ratings. Steam currently has over 30,000 reviews, and it's sitting on mixed, with only 46% of them having something positive to say. The day after release, Geoff would acknowledge that
Opening X
things
this morning
weren't going that well for him. He'd jokingly say, "Opening X this morning," while linking
Did we ever get
an
apology from him?
From Tangled, surrounded by many different swords. This tweet would again gain a lot of exposure, 5 million views, 47,000 likes, 2,000 replies. And again, as you might imagine, a lot of them were not positive. Many people in the industry...
I think it's funny to blame Geoff, but it's not Geoff's fault, right? Like, maybe he genuinely liked the game, but just the people didn't deliver.
Would take notice of this, and some would choose to speak out against it. You'd have the vice president and co-founder of Epic Games say, "It's downright horrible," referring to all the hate this new game was getting. Especially a free game from a new studio. Just so sad. This is a hobby for people they should approach with joy, not hatred.
Well, you should approach it with, what do you call it? You should deliver a good game, not a bad one. Are we asking for too much? I don't think so. Like, if people don't want gamers to hate on a game, just make a good game. Why is that one not the first option? This is clearly a universally hated game, except for maybe the 200 people or 100 people who were still on the game as of like before it was announced to EOS. Dog, no matter how much bad publicity you have, people are still going to play it, right? I make sure to always shit talk League of Legends, but people still play it. Some people think it's good. I don't know how, but they think League of Legends is a good game. So it's not like negative publishing is going to, I don't know. There's like negative publishing, and then there's just your game just a bad. And at that point, we should not be responsible for holding up your game just because you tried. You guys tried really, really hard, and now you deserve to have a good game. No, brother, put in the work. What? You can't just, what do you call it? You cannot participation your way to a good game. You have to make a good game.
Of course, many of these 200 replies would not have positive things to say. One of the tweets on this topic that will get the most attention would be from Sven Vinke, the studio head of Larian, the creators behind Baldur's Gate 3, saying, "I don't like people shitting on things others have created. Putting something out into the world makes you vulnerable, and that alone deserves respect, even if you dislike the creation. It's easy to destroy things, it's a lot harder to build them. The best critics understand this. Even when they're being critical, they do their best not to be hurtful." Again, as you might expect, the top replies, the most liked ones at least, were not in agreement with it.
I love the you know what? I have the utmost respect for Larian. I do. They make it. Larian is a good example. They made an absolute banger of a game with Baldur's Gate 3 and I think a lot of their catalog is still really, really good from what I hear. Like, people are going back and playing, is it one of the Divinity games that just popped off again? Dude, they make good games. Whatever.
In just one day, Highgard
Maybe
would
it's
lose
me.
half its player count. Another day would pass by, they would lose yet another 50% of their player
jeez
count.
Louise.
It seemed like with every passing day, thousands of players were leaving. But hey, it seemed like they weren't going to let that get in the way of their plans. Shortly after the game would come out, they would tweet, "Here's a look at the Highgard Year 1 game plan. Episode 2 arrives in 2 weeks. Each episode is 2 months long. Content shown is free for all players." And they would have plans up until...
Wait, so what is it on here? March. So they never even made it to episode 2. New warden, new map, ranked mode, new mount. Okay. New raid tool? What? Oh, okay. A new base. All right, cool. So each episode has a new warden, a new base, I think a new weapon, a new map over there, a new loot item, new amulets, new mods. Okay. I mean, this looks like any kind of what you would expect. This is what you would expect from any kind of update, right? Yeah, it's fine. It's nothing too crazy here.
December 2026. Every 2 months, you'd have a new warden, a new character to play. Every 4 months, you'd have a new map. Rank
Did anyone ever see the new warden that was supposed to come out in episode 2? Did they ever release that?
mode was coming soon. You'd have new weapons, new raid tools, new limited time game modes. I mean, it seemed like they had things figured out. It seemed like they were here for the long run, regardless if players were leaving or not.
LTMs.
It also seemed like they were very open for feedback and weren't afraid to try new things. On January 30th, the #1 marketer of this game, Geoff Keighley, would tweet out, "Highgard has added a 5v5 raid mode to the game, playable today." Now, did that help with player retention? Yes, a few thousands would play, realize that the game just wasn't for them, like definitively, and then it would proceed to lose many more players, reaching below 10,000 on the 3rd of February, and only dwindling more since then.
Right.
By February 12th, the game would be down to 3,100 players on Steam, and with every passing day, they kept losing hundreds more. Even with their 1-year planning strategy and their willingness to accept feedback, it seemed like the Concord 2 prophecy was coming true no matter how hard they tried
As it was
to fight
written,
it.
chat,
This would be
as it
directly
was
confirmed
written.
to us because in barely just 2 weeks after the launch of the game, the majority, not just a small chunk, the majority of the employees working at Wildlight Entertainment would get laid off.
Oof.
On February 12th, 2026, when the game was down to a mere 3,000 players on Steam and no doubt a few thousand on consoles as well, the Twitter account Shinobi602 would tweet out, "Highgard
Having a Twitter account, what's that like? Must be nice.
developer Wildlight Entertainment has seemingly laid off most of its staff," quoting a LinkedIn post from an employee in which they said, "Unfortunately, along with most of the team at Wildlight, I was laid off today." The LinkedIn post would go deeper, saying, "This one really stings as there was a lot of unreleased content I was really looking forward to that I and others designed for Highgard." This person in particular was a senior level designer with 7 years
I
of
feel like they should, unless they want to, soft skills and emotional intelligence. Oh, that's just content. Oh, sorry, that's something else. That has nothing to do with them. Ignore that. What was I saying? I feel like unless they're gonna try to implement it into a different game, they should kind of leak all this stuff. I would be at least somewhat interested to see if they could kind of make a cool looking character. Right? The characters are facially, at the very least, good looking. Maybe there were skins that were gonna come out that that would have looked cool. I don't know.
experience in the AAA game space.
I'm just
It's now
curious
been
to see
3
what it would
weeks,
look
and as
like.
far as I could tell from his profile, he's still looking for a job. Around the same time, another employee would make a Twitter article titled "Reflecting on
I love this article. I remember. Was this the guy who said that he has a bit of the tism? I love this article, dude. This article is my favorite thing I've ever read.
shipping my
I didn't read it. I think Hirohei read it, but still,
first game."
it was
Highgard.
so
This
good.
post would prove to be a disaster.
That was a thing
the
of
developer in
art.
question would get brigaded and bombarded with some very harsh words,
Yeah.
turning a very bad situation even uglier. And it would mainly be due to a couple of paragraphs that I'll read out to you, and, well, you can make up your own mind. He'd say that the game had unbiased internal pre-reveal feedback, and it was quite positive. When it was negative, it was constructive and often actionable, indicating that there was, as far as they were concerned, nothing wrong with the game. He'd then continue, but then the trailer came out, and it was all downhill from there. Content creators
Sure.
love to point out the bias in folks who give positive reviews after being flown out for an event, but ignore the fact that when their negative-leaning content gets 10 times the engagement of the positive, they've got just as much incentive to lean into a disingenuous direction, whether consciously or not.
They need can you guys stop flying out people? Just put out a beta. Like, seriously, or an alpha, or, like, don't bring people out. Don't fly them out. Let them play from the comfort of their own home. They won't give you these they'll let them be able to shit talk you as well. Right? And negative leaning content gets 10 times more the engagement of the positive. I'll tell you now. One of my most disliked videos on my main account is me being negative about Wuthering Waves. Trust me. Being negative doesn't always work out. I don't take it back though, but they were not happy about what I had to say about Wuthering Waves. Hey, don't blame me because your game has no events. That's not my fault.
The hate started immediately. In addition to dogpiling on the trailer, I personally came under fire due to my naivete on Twitter, which almost all of my now former coworkers had learned to avoid during their previous game launches, he explained. After setting my Twitter account to private to protect my sanity, many content creators made videos and posts about me and my cowardice, amassing millions of views and inadvertently sending hundreds of angry gamers into my replies. They laughed at me for being proud of the game, told me to get out the McDonald's applications.
I know which one. I know where that one came from.
And mocked me for listing having autism.
It gets funnier every time. I don't know why that's so fucking funny, bro. Why would you list that? Oh my god, bro. Something about that sentence is just so funny to me. I love reading that every time. Oh my gosh. Also, they laughed at you. They're gonna laugh. Here's the thing. And this is a good... I think this is good advice for anybody. You're gonna get dogpiled, not even dogpiled, but you're gonna have negative responses to everything. It's not so much about the negative press that you get, it's about how you respond to it, right? Like, if you're getting dogpiled on Twitter, you could go into private protective mode. You're gonna look cowardly, sure. If you leave it on, typically people will just move on and go do something else, okay? I think you probably should have just left it on. But also at the same time, you shouldn't go on Twitter, right? That's probably like the best thing for people who can't handle it. Just don't go on Twitter. Why do you need to go on Twitter? You have a job you already have a job. Your job isn't to review or make content or interact with people or build a community. You already have, your job has something else to do. I mean, if you want to look at Highgard memes and stuff like that, sure, but then put it under like a pseudonym or something. You didn't have to throw yourself into the flames. In fact, I would advise you not to, because you clearly can't handle it, and that's okay, because it's not like this is kiddie stuff, right? People get really, really mean. I understand. I get it, brother. I really do. I'm just saying that you should have known that. Twitter is not known for being a nice place. The internet is not nice. The internet doesn't owe you being nice. So you should have just, hey, I'm not even going on Twitter. Blue Sky will probably have you. Hey, come with me. I'm out over in Weibo. I ain't going to Blue Cry. Hell no. My ass went to Weibo. You could go to Blue Cry, right? They love your kind over there, the game developers. They love you guys over at Blue Cry. You can go there. Why did you go to Twitter? You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm just saying you could have taken proper steps to defend yourself and your mental. That's all I'm trying to say.
In my bio.
Also, me listing having autism in my bio is the favorite sentence I've ever read. I love that.
Which they seem to think was evidence the game would be woke
I'm
trash.
sorry.
All of this was very emotionally taxing.
Yeah.
We would then acknowledge that there's
Twitter.
much constructive criticism about the trailer, marketing, and launch.
Either you're ready to get and jump into the fight, which I was. You're either very ready to jump into the fight and get into the discussions and just start like replying and being snarky and going back towards people, which is it's totally cool. Or just don't go on Twitter, bro. I'm sorry. Twitter isn't for you. under like being openly being a developer, probably not the move. You can have a regular Twitter, be a VTuber or something. Don't be a VTuber actually, but you know, be anything, and just be an anime profile picture. Be one of the random anime profile pictures. Scroll like at Highgard fan art if anyone's ever made any. I doubt it, but you know, you might as well. And just leave it at that.
But also isn't sure if things would have been better had the game not been announced at the Game Awards. He would then say, "We were turned into a joke from minute one." Largely due to the false assumptions about $1 million ad placement, which even prominent journalists soon began to state as fact. Within minutes, it was decided. This game was dead on arrival. And creators had free rage bait content for a month. Every one of our videos on social media got downvoted to hell. Comment sections were flooded with copy-paste meme phrases such as Concord 2 and Titanfall 3 died for this. At launch, we received over 14,000 review bombs from users with less than an hour of playtime. Many didn't even finish the required tutorial. He'd finished this.
I don't even think people can have more than an hour in that game, right? I think an hour in that game is just you on the loading screen.
By saying, if this pattern continues, all that will be left are corporations, at least in the multiplayer space. Innovation is on life support. Even if Highgard had a rocky launch, our independent, self-published, dev-led studio full of passionate people just trying to make a fun game with zero AI and zero corporate oversight deserved better than this. We deserve the bare minimum of not having our downfall be gleefully manifested. Barely a couple of days after this article would come out on Twitter, this developer would end up deleting his
look, this is just like me, except my account, except I didn't have a choice.
Account. For many of his loudest haters, this article he wrote was nothing more than him playing the victim. Blaming gamers, blaming content creators, blaming pretty much anyone except maybe himself and the game developers that made this game that seemingly no one asked for. On the other hand, though, one can understand his frustration. He had worked for almost 3 years on a game, finally revealed it, and within the span of a month, his whole life fell apart. I don't know what he was hoping to do with this article, but, you know, in the end, as we can see, his account was gone. But that was the least of his worries and the least of many other people's worries when it came to Highgard. That's because barely a day after the mass layoffs would happen, Highgard's website, when you'd go to it, would say, "Site unavailable. This site is currently unavailable. Please contact some email for assistance." Under that, you would see a link to their Discord server and their Twitter profile. Now, the Twitter link worked. The Discord link, on the other hand, did not. In fact, when you would click on it, it would redirect you to a completely different and unrelated Discord server by the name of Highgard Gaming Guild. This had nothing to do with the game. It was just called Highgard. They didn't even bother posting the right server in that link. Additionally, as this was all happening, Highgard couldn't even be found as a YouTube category anymore. Usually when you upload a video of a game, you can very easily label it. Let's say League of Legends or Call of Duty. Highgard had a category, but it was removed. And during all this, someone would ask in the correct Highgard Discord server, what's up with the website being updated? And someone from the Highgard team would say, not sure on the time frame, but basically it needs to be transferred and simplified. Low priority at the moment, reputational damage already done. Now we just need to focus on delivering updates and content to improve. Now look, I already know what you're thinking. Mujin, this is a catastrophe. This is a disaster. What the hell is happening? Oh yeah, it is.
I know what you're asking. Mujin, why are you French? Sorry, go ahead.
You're completely right about that. But here's the thing. It's about to get a million times worse. Remember how Geoff had introduced Highgard's developer? Here are his exact words. This is how he described them.
The power of independent, self-published studios to push the
independent, self-published studios. Earlier than this, during this clip, he would also call them independent, indie. Hell, even the employee who had written that article before deleting his account would refer to them the same exact way. Independent, self-published studio. We were under the impression this studio was independent, self-funded. This is what everyone was saying. However, on February 17th, 2026, the same day their website would go down, the games journalist Stefan Totillo would drop a bombshell saying, sources, Tencent secretly funded struggling shooter Highgard. Wildlight Entertainment has said for years it was fully funded, but not shared detail. Stephen's article would go into specifics, saying that it wasn't Tencent, the Chinese entity that directly funded them. It was done through a subsidiary, Timmy. saying sources familiar with the Tencent Wildlife connection
Timmy,
said
okay.
that Tencent studio group Timmy was the group backing Wildlife.
Right,
They did not
okay.
specify to GameFile the reason for the secrecy about the agreement, nor did they share the scale. It's unclear if or when the funding ended and how that relates to last week's layoffs. Wildlife
Wait, Delta Force is Tencent? I didn't even know that. I know this. I know this. I know the rest of these are, right? Honor of Kings, which I think is that what it's called? Is that the original name? I know there's an original name and an overseas name. I think it is Honor of Kings. I think so. Is it? Or is it Mobile Legends? I think it's Mobile Legends. I don't know. But yeah, I didn't know Delta Force was part of Tencent. I know the rest of these are.
has been technically independent and not part of Timmy. Timmy/Tencent are massive players in gaming, and yes, they are. I've mentioned them on this channel already. One can't forget that Tencent Games owns Honor of Kings, the highest grossing
Arena
mobile
of Valor. No, I was wrong. Sorry, Arena of Valor. Got it. Gotcha. Yeah, Arena of Valor. Dude, Candy Crush Saga. That's insane. King. Activision Blizzard. No wonder Blizzard doesn't close their doors, dude. Candy Crush is just like a self-funding Blizzard, which, I mean, it's not like I can make fun of them, right? You have Genshin Impact, like, where is it? Right here. This is funding MiHoYo right here. Well, kind of. This and Honkai Star Rail, because Honkai Star Rail made so much money as well. Roblox Mobile, Fate Grand Order. Grandpa is still going. Pretty wild. Pretty wild that Fate Grand Order still makes so much money. Shout out to Grandpa. Still going hard.
game of all time ever in the history of humanity, sitting at $18.6 billion, making even more money than Candy Crush Saga. Let's also not forget that they own 40% of Epic Games as well as 100% of Riot Games, the creators of League of Legends. This, of course, dealt in
It's probably why they have the gacha system now for skins, right?
an even bigger blow to Highgard's already dwindling reputation that was down in the gutter. People felt
Shibai.
like they were lying about their whole independent self-published status. And while we don't have a specific number as to how much Tencent could have funded the studio with, some people have been floating around the idea that it was over $200 million. And seeing that the studio was technically founded in 2021, announced in 2023, and had its first game launched in 2026, those many years of development could very easily span tens of millions of dollars. But look, Highgard was already in the shitter, okay? They had laid off most of their staff. I mean, come on, this was going to be dead. This was truly going to be Concord 2. The person suffering from this Tencent connection was Geoff Keighley. Now, there was a conspiracy. Maybe Geoff wasn't doing this because his family was held hostage or out of the goodness of his heart. There was again a third possibility in the mix. He was doing this for real financial incentive because Tencent and Geoff Keighley maintain a long-standing strategic partnership focused on expanding the global reach of the game.
China's a coming, chat. They're coming.
Awards and other gaming events. Since 2016, this collaboration has facilitated the show's distribution in China. And one can see that the senior vice president of Tencent,
David
Xiao
Lin.
Ma, is sitting on the advisory board
Stephen
of
Ma.
the Game Awards. So by February 19th,
Why does he have such an aura picture, bro? Look, he's aura farming.
sitting on the
Stephen Ma.
advisory board of the Game Awards. So by February 19th, Jeff's posts
Todd
on
Howard.
Twitter, in which he would talk about things unrelated to Highgard, would have questions about this. Are you secretly funded by Tencent? Were you pressured by
Wait, was this just a random post? Todd Howard says it's going to be a while. Going to be a while yet until the release of Elder Scrolls 6. Source kind of funny games interview.
Highgard would have questions about this. Are you secretly
It's always Madam Savvy too. She just be out here.
funded by Tencent?
She just be out
Were you
here
pressured by
wilding.
Tencent to make these posts about Highgard? What's going on exactly?
Yeah.
This studio is about to completely close its doors. The game was very mid. You must have been lying that you had fun, right? But still, layoffs aside, Tencent aside, flop and impending doom aside,
Slappa.
Highgard would continue to patch and update the game, releasing multiple updates, one on
Sure.
February 19th, as well as one on February 26th, releasing new game modes, new weapon balance patches. And while that was admirable, by February 26th, the game was down to 600.
Damn, bro, you couldn't even get a
on Steam.
hiccup out of
In
that.
exactly 1 month since release, the game had gone from 100,000 players to 611 players. The
Yeesh.
majority had left, and
I
no
hate
one
to see it.
was coming back. At this point, the writing was on the wall. It was clear as day. This studio, this game, they weren't going to last.
It's
And so on
dead.
March 3rd, 2026, the official Highgard account would post an article saying, Highgard's final update arriving soon. Thank you for playing with us. In which they would say, more specifically,
there it is, baby.
Today
EOS.
we're sharing difficult news. We have made the decision to permanently shut down Highgard on March 12th. Since launch, more than 2 million players stepped into Highgard's world. You shared feedback, created content, and many believed in what we were building. For that, we are deeply grateful. They would then go on to say, the team is excited to release one final game update to enjoy in the remaining life of the game. We'll be adding a new warden, a new weapon, account level progression, and skill trees. Full patch notes are coming, and we're targeting tonight or tomorrow morning for patch release.
Okay, so
From
they
all of
did
us at
release a new
Wildlight,
warden.
Thank you for playing. For
Which I don't
supporting us,
know
and
what
for
the
being
warden
part
was,
of
and I can't
Highgard's
look it up
story.
myself, but
This
still.
article would have over 8 million views. 4,100 replies. And while some were disappointed
Welcome
or
home,
shocked
baby.
that this had happened, many were expecting it.
Welcome
maybe
home.
even gloating about it. From the get-go,
Concord,
this
there
game
it
was
is.
nothing more than a self-fulfilling prophecy of being Concord 2, and they had just shut down in under 2 months. But how did this even happen? How do you get the backing of Geoff Keighley? How do you get the most prestigious slot in the Game Awards show with over 1 million viewers? How do you get financial backing from one of, if not the biggest gaming company in the world? How do you get
Tencent.
very talented developers that worked on nothing but blockbuster games and still managed to fail so
I don't
miserably?
know, Chad. I
Well,
just don't know.
Now we know. And it's
We
even
do?
messier than we could have ever imagined.
Oh, no.
Respawn Entertainment is a
Okay.
studio owned by EA. Their first breakout hit was
Titanfall.
Titanfall, releasing in 2014 and garnering many positive reviews. I personally loved playing it when it came out. It was
Right.
really, really cool and innovative. Some years would pass by, and they would then release Titanfall 2. This game was not only well received for its multiplayer aspects, but it had something the first game didn't, a single-player campaign. And
Ooh.
that was absolutely loved by so many. And even though people were expecting them to maybe
Apex.
work on Titanfall 3, they ended up doing
I
something
actually played Apex on release. I played a lot of Wraith. I've played so much, I've played Wraith for so long. When I first played her, she had a Naruto run. That's how much I played Wraith.
very unexpected.
I love her.
Shadow dropping a game in 2019 with zero marketing, zero announcement, just saying, hey, it's out, called Apex Legends. A
Apex
battle royale
Legends.
game that garnered a lot of success. The late co-founder of Respawn Entertainment would tweet out, I'm so overwhelmed right now. Play Apex broke 1 million unique players in under 8 hours.
Dude, it was great. I just wish I had the PC to play it. Because this game is good. I can play it now, but you know, when it was released, I was stuttering frames, that's for sure.
And after the first day would pass by, it would have
Apex
reached
Legends.
2.5 million players. This is a game that had zero marketing. To many, this is how a game should launch from now on. All games should launch like this. Like, yo, we just dropped this game, play it. No announcements months prior or years prior. This was genius, and it was free. So it's no surprise that in just a few years, by 2024, this game would have made
Damn.
over $3.4 billion. And again, I really have to
I still don't have an heirloom, by the way.
emphasize this game had no marketing. Grand Theft Auto 5 had spent $100 million on marketing alone. So of course, everyone in the gaming industry wanted to know, how did you guys do this? How did this surprise launch even come to be? When did you even start working on this game? And this is what one of the developers would say. The way we work is by finding the fun. We don't have a game director who sits down and writes up a 500-page Bible. We're like a really poorly trained dog on a walk. We just kind of sniff around, let's follow our nose wherever we go, whatever's fun, we'll go a bit deeper, rub our nose in it, roll around in that a little bit. So this had happened in mid-2017 after the post-launch support for Titanfall 2 would end. They didn't really know what to do, and they just started messing with prototypes. Some of the developers at the time were interested in making a battle royale game. They would put together some prototypes, and very quickly it became very fun. And the rest is history. And so by the time Apex Legends had made billions of dollars, some people at Respawn felt, you know what? We could do this again, but this time on our own terms, and would leave to create Wildlight Entertainment. In fact, here was their exact reasoning from a Bloomberg article. Back in January 2026, Dusty Welch, the co-founder and CEO of Wildlight Entertainment, would tell Bloomberg, yeah, we left Respawn because things were getting a bit too locked up. There was no more freedom. We couldn't just do whatever we wanted like we used to. However, in this article from the end of February 2026, we'd see another reason. One could say the main reason. It would say, in 2019, they had released Apex Legends, a battle royale shooter in which dozens of players fight across a giant map.
Right.
The game proved to be a massive success, generating more than $3 billion in revenue. Yet as sales piled up, some of the creatives who'd worked on it felt unhappy that they weren't benefiting enough from the resulting windfall. According to people familiar with what happened, who asked not to be identified discussing non-public information. The Wildlight founders decided to do things differently. One of their plans was to set up a profit-sharing program so that if the studio did deliver another big success, everyone would benefit. And
What? This isn't like writing a song. You don't get royalties. Right? I mean, you do a job and you get paid for it, but you're not like creating a song. You don't get royalties off of this, right? And even then, when creating a song, people get like what do you call it? People are don't get points off of songs. They just get an upfront fee. What? Why do they feel like they were entitled to like revenue split? That's so weird. Huh. What? What a weird kind of thing to want. Well, I don't know. Other people do that, right? I don't think so. No, they're a studio. You have a job. You do your job. You get paid for your job. You get paid like you're an employee. You're not like a partner.
Enticing setup that ultimately helped Welch and his co-founders attract many of their former Respawn colleagues to the new company.
Okay.
Armed with a significant amount of funding from Tencent Holdings Ltd, Wildlight began hiring employees and making plans for its first game. The founders knew they wanted to make another multiplayer shooter, but they hoped to avoid the crowded battle royale market. So instead, they looked to Rust, a survival game in which players can raid enemy bases and build their own. They began constructing levels and designing mechanics for what was envisioned as a survival-focused shooter.
Okay.
2 years into development, the team realized that the design wasn't working, in part because the amount of freedom conflicted with their goals for highly competitive play, according to people familiar with the events.
Okay.
Also, the scope was too big. Still, some parts were salvageable. The base raiding aspect of the survival game in particular seemed worth keeping. In January 2024, the team pivoted to what would become Highgard, a raid shooter that streamlined many of the survival aspects into a faster, more competitive game. So this is kind of starting to make more sense, right? The idea of why the game felt like you were playing this Frankenstein creation of multiple aspects mashed up together. Look, the dog sniffing phase that Respawn Entertainment used is very important. Let's not forget that Call of Duty Zombies was made by just a few people messing around in the office. But you also need a proper scope. You can't just do whatever you want, however you want, with unlimited money. They had also failed to understand what made Rust special. Base rating was intense because of what was at stake. You couldn't rush it down to under an hour. The same feelings wouldn't be there. It would just be tedious. They had essentially made a game with no demographic. If you wanted base building, you'd play Rust. If you wanted Battle Royale, you'd play Apex Legends. One really interesting thing the Bloomberg article would also mention was...
It seems like they were trying to make a one-stop shop game. Which seems a little bit too ambitious in my opinion, but yeah, that's kind of weird. I don't know.
When asked what they thought went wrong, several former Wildlight developers used the word hubris, a belief by the company's leadership that they could emulate what had worked in the past with Apex Legends. No matter how much the gaming landscape had changed since then, after all, they'd made one of the last decade's biggest hits. This hubris stemmed from the fact they were so confident this game was good, they were going to shadow drop it again, just like Apex Legends, knowing that the game could hold up for itself. However...
Man. Damn. I mean, in a way I can kind of get it, right? But you put... Man, there's too many ideas, man. I don't know. It's kind of weird. Because I can get it, right? If you make one hit, you imagine you can make another one, right? Especially if you have all the developers from the people who made the big hit. But I don't know. Something Something about it's just not adding up.
After Geoff
I don't want to say that they lost their passion for it, but it feels weird.
Keighley had played during their playtest, he approached the development team. He approached the co-founder, who was his friend, and told them, hey, I love the game. I want to highlight it during the Game Awards since you guys are an independent studio. The co-founder would say he came into the studio and played the game, I think, twice, and he said, guys, can I propose to you? I want to do something that's unique. I want to put it in this spot and kind of do something different and bring this to the world. Welch would say, and that wasn't our plan, but like, are we going to turn down the exposure? Who would turn that down?
You probably should have. Right? Man, this game should not have been... This game is nowhere near being done, I guess. I don't know. I'm trying to see it from their point of view, right? I'm trying to see where this could have went right, but everything's just not. I don't know.
And then you'd have Chad Grenier chime in too, the ex-creative director of Apex Legends and the head of the studio of Wildlight, saying, so we rushed a trailer together. I wish the reception had been better, but in hindsight, we made a trailer to entertain really quickly and didn't show the gameplay loop and was different and unique. They would then take the exact same approach as Apex Legends. No real marketing until release, and then a massive social media campaign with influencers, streamers, content creators, you name it. Problem is though, during the silence and during the time in which people were calling this game Concord 2.0, the morale of the team was hit pretty badly. They couldn't say anything and they were watching people pretty much tear into something they've worked on for 3 years.
So we made a trailer called we didn't show the gameplay loop and okay. Man, so because they wanted to stick to their guns of wanting to shadow drop it, right? Thinking that it's going to be like an Apex. That's how this went wrong. I could see that, yeah. Man, I'm trying to hang in there with you, but it really, yeah, I guess hubris is a big thing for this because you just don't got it, bro. I'm sorry. You don't. You guys didn't have the game, and that's fine, right? I think they should have turned down. I mean, it's hard too, right? When you have something so big and massive approach you like, hey, we want to put you in front of the world. I don't think I could turn it down. I really don't. So it's not like I blame them. But you kind of should have. Because it's like, you guys weren't ready. And I think it's okay to admit that. But like I said, I can kind of understand it, right? As someone who makes content, it would absolutely be a dream to have someone come up. Like the thing about content creation is kind of like if you get co-signed by somebody, right? You kind of just make your way to the top, right? And I don't want to put any names because it's like that sounds kind of mean to do, but you know, if you have a cosign, you will pretty much make a career overnight. So I get it, right? I totally get it. I don't think I could have turned it down either. But you guys knew you weren't ready. I don't think you guys think. There's no way you guys really thought you were ready. You didn't even have the trailer ready.
Years. Barely a month after the game had come out, the layoffs would begin. It would be held online on a Zoom call since the studio worked remotely, and they'd pretty much announce, yeah, the funding was entirely pulled from the studio. The 100-person team had over 80% of it laid off that same day. By the time Eurogamer's report on February 27, 2026 would come out, there were less than 20 people still working at the studio, doing their best to release updates before the eventual shutdown on March 12th. On March 3rd, Highgard would announce to the world that it was shutting down on March 12th, and shortly after that, you would start seeing way more posts posted on LinkedIn from previous workers at Wildlight talking about the fact that this game was shutting down and how, well, they were looking for a job, saying things like, we swung for the fences in a saturated market and made something genuinely new that we loved to play. Even the studio head, Chad Grenier, would make a post starting it off with, Highgard didn't need to become the next Apex-sized hit to succeed. We weren't chasing that scale. What we needed was a smaller but stable stable and sustainable player base, and ultimately we weren't able to find it. That's
Sure.
interesting, because I would argue a smaller but stable and sustainable player base would be around maybe 2,000 players, a few thousands, let's say. But let's remember
Right.
that by the time they had reached 2,000 or so players on Steam, they conducted the mass layoffs. That's without counting the players on consoles. So this really begs the question, what was the studio even hoping to achieve? Did
I
they
don't
really
even
think
know.
they'd have over 10,000 players within a week if it wasn't for the Game Awards? This whole thing reeks of mismanagement and hubris. It's incredible. He would then go on to say how proud he is of the journey, of his team, and that he had learned a lot throughout all of it. At the
Sure,
same
why
time, though,
not?
you'd also find him on Twitter saying something that was very interesting. He said
Oh.
someone would quote tweet
Wait, what did he say?
the closure on Twitter, saying,
When you're out of time and money, you have to release a game with the runway you have available and hope players will stick with you post-launch. Okay.
something that was very interesting. You see, someone would quote tweet the closure announcement of Highgard, saying, "People don't praise failure, but it's the foundation of every success, nothing but love for wildlight." To which someone would reply with, "It's just baffling to me they released the game in such a skeleton state and decided now's the time to add account levels and introduce some sort of skill tree system. It's crazy to see the parallels between this game failing and seeing Marathon come back after so many tests." This is when the studio head, Chad Grenier, would say, "When you're out of time and money, you have to release a game with the runway you have available and hope players will stick with you post-launch." Now that definitely didn't give off the same tone that his LinkedIn post did. Hell, I'm even baffled why you would want to even admit this, you know? You had close to
Yeah.
4 years of development, and this was the best you could do? The more we learn about this game, the more we understand this was mismanagement. They were fully funded and got way too confident about that. But development and management issues aside, some people would spark
Ooh.
up discussions about the art direction of this game and the missed potential. Many of the employees who worked on this game artistically would start posting much of the work on websites like ArtStation, showcasing it in their portfolio. One
Okay.
thing that people would find is this
Dude, that's kind of cool.
very interesting character
That's
concept.
pretty
Being absolutely
sick.
baffled as to why this wasn't included in the game's release.
Dude, look at her armor. Oh, I'm telling you, chat. This is like your last. This is the final form of the character you pick in an MMO. They show you this, and then they give you the level 1 gear. Look at how badass this is. This is so cool. It has so much personality to it too. It's not like some generic armor you find off the ground. That's cool. You know what she reminds me of? She kind of reminds me of Hawks from My Hero Academia.
Instead, including
That's
some
pretty
way more
sick.
boring designs.
Oh, she has like wings right here. That's really cool. I love this armor. Something about this armor is really cool. Oh, she has the one armor thing on the shoulder. Like the shoulder guard. That's pretty cool. What is that on her hip? Those like skulls? That's pretty cool. That's sick. This is really cool.
At the same time, the artist Kasaragul would make a very interesting long post about the art direction of this game and why it was baffling, how none of it really made sense. It didn't mesh well together. Some people also argued that because much of the game's art was outsourced to different studios and people outside of the studios,
Is that John Video Game? Is that what he was supposed to look like? Kind of looks like Braum because of this thing.
itself, the outsourcing team as well as the art director failed to keep cohesion, which resulted in not just the gameplay itself feeling like some sort of Frankenstein creation, but also its entire art direction. The entire thing was mismanaged to hell from day one. It was a tragedy.
I think the worst part is I'm starting to see the vision now of what they were going for. And it probably would have worked, I think. The more I see the art direction and what they had, I think they would have figured it out. Yeah. I don't know, man. I feel like there could have been something here.
And with that, I actually want to mention a quote from Gabe Newell. This is drawn from the article by Geoff Keighley detailing the development of Half-Life 2. The team at Valve wanted Gabe Newell to greenlight Half-Life 2's development. It was actually very hard to do that because their proof of concept just wasn't good enough for him for a while. Of course, there was the argument, well, why can't Gabe just finance it? I mean, come on, you know, like what's stopping him? He has the money for it. And this is when this paragraph comes along, saying, "True. But most game developers...
Sorry, I missed all of that because of the Zenless Zone Zero song.
Of course, there was the argument, well, why can't Gabe just finance it? I mean, come on, you know, like what's stopping him? He has the money for it. And this is when this paragraph comes along, saying, true, but most game developers also aren't in Valve's position, where Newell has enough money to fund a game's development out of his pocket if he so pleases. So is it really fair to hold other developers to the same standards as Valve?
I guess
Ask
not.
Newell this question and he grows agitated. Any developer who bitches about, oh, our publisher cut off our money, or the publisher made us ship the game early, doesn't get it, he says. That's the interesting problem you have to solve as a developer. If you don't, well, you'll be perpetually screwed.
Damn, he said it smelled like bitch in here, brother. I could smell it on you. Look at that. It's like he's like a dog. He's got like the werewolf smelling thing, dude. He's just a... I could smell it I could smell the bitch a mile away.
But how do you solve the problem? Newell cites the development of Counter-Strike, where a young college kid in Vancouver made a Half-Life add-on as a prime example. You bootstrap, Newell suggests. The Counter-Strike guys didn't have some sugar daddy show up and drop a huge wad of cash in their lap. You have to be creative. This was said back in 2002, and today in 2026, it could...
I'm telling you, chat, these new developers, they just don't get it. I think even at this point, the studios don't get it, chat. They don't know what it's like to hustle. They don't know what it's like to hit the streets, right? To hit the corner and try to work overnights or work late nights with a dream and a passion for the game, chat. There's no love for the game anymore, it feels like. You know what I'm saying? With these developers, they don't have passion for they don't have a passion for the craft. They don't know what it's like. Chat, they ain't hustling 8 balls on the corner. They don't know.
Could not ring more true. Concord had a sugar daddy. Their name was Sony. $400 million. Look where that got them. The game sucked. Period. You want funding? How about you make a game first? A proof of concept that's actually fun. When it comes to the world leaderboard of any percent speedruns of shutting down after release, Highgard now sits at 4th place behind the Culling 2, Concord, and Crucible at 45 days. The Twitter account Poorly Aged Things would quote tweet Geoff Keighley's GIF saying, in 48 hours I'll be accepting your apologies.
I'm sorry,
saying,
Geoff.
I'm sorry, Geoff.
Poorly Aged
Geoff would
Things.
reply with a shocked image of that same grandpa in the GIF. I mean, in the movie itself, he would say this,
funny.
and then he would be proven wrong. So it was very ironic. At least he was playing into the joke. But some people would be very weird about this and would photograph Geoff on Rodeo Drive in Los Angeles and say that this was him a day after Highgard announced the studio shutting down. I don't know why you got to take a picture of him IRL.
That's kind of weird. What? Why did you just take a picture of... Where did you just randomly find Geoff? You just randomly got a picture of what?
For this, but what do I expect from people at this point?
Cody versus Randy.
Some would even argue that Geoff actually needs to take a level of accountability for...
I don't think so. Question mark? I don't know, man. Like I said, I need to see what he played, and I need to see that footage of him playing it, because there's no way he had this much fun with it that he risked it all for it. I don't know, Chad. I'm not buying it. I'm not sold.
The game,
and neither is anyone else, apparently.
But personally, I think if you have common sense, you'd understand that he actually did them a huge favor here, assuming he genuinely did this out of the goodness of his own heart. The game would have definitely launched with maybe like 10K concurrence instead of 100,000 on PC. Additionally, 2 million people tried it, and the majority didn't leave because the internet made them. Okay?
Yeah.
Paul Tassi makes a...
When it's that high of a failure and that high of a reach, you know, you would, as content creators, hope that... how do I say this? You do hope that you have that kind of reach, but 2 million people in different kinds of situations and different kind of consoles and different types of, you know, news feed and all that. We don't really know what their For You page looks like. You just can't account for all of them to just be hate viewers, right? And people who were told that this game was going to be bad. That's just natural hate, baby. That's just natural disagreement right there.
Great point here. marketing can only get you to try a game. It can't get you to stay on the game if it's not fun. And Highgard simply was not fun. It was weird. And at this point, it seems like every year we're seeing yet another disaster story that is similar to Concord, a game that no one asked for, that had a big budget, that had very talented people working on it, and somehow, some way, it was worked on for years without anyone thinking, wait a second, are we really about to do
what a
this?
magical
I don't
game
know, man.
Concord
All I know
was.
is that the gaming industry is in a very rough spot right now. It's almost impossible to find a job. AI isn't even to blame for this. Executives have no idea what players actually want, and if they do, they're always late on it. And seeing that they never actually suffer the consequences directly, their employees do, they have no incentive to actually learn from their mistakes. If you want to make games, make them, but make something that people want to actually play, and don't ask for sugar daddy money. Make a playable game for
I want to ask for sugar daddy money, chat. Chat, someone fund my tongue pulls. I think I need like 90 more for hard pity, but I kind of have confidence. So chat, if anyone send me some supas, some akasupas. I need my tiny tongue.
Pitch it, and then get your fun.
And then Rosie,
Otherwise,
chat. Don't
you'll
forget
end up
about
like
Rosie.
Concord,
I need both.
like Highgard, and God knows whatever else is going to release soon that will face the same fate. Thank you so much for watching this video until the very end. I really hope you enjoyed it. I love you so much. Platonically, I missed you.
No, the hell it's not. It is absolutely not platonically. Come here, big boy.
Make sure to check out my Stacked page if you want to see exclusive content of me with videos, both short and long, yapping. And I'll see you in the next video, whenever that is, hopefully soon. Take care, and
bye-bye. Geoff Keighley. Hey, guys. Highgard's coming. Highgard's coming January 26th, by the way. Hey, guys. Highgard's shutting down March 13th, by the way. Oh, that's good, bro. Oh, is this that was probably a live stream. Chat. That was a long one. Hour and a half. Chat, we always get some heat from Mujin, though. We got to watch it, chat. Anyways, let me know how you guys feel, chat. Let me comment, like, subscribe. I'll catch you gamers. The next one. Bye.